Good evening and welcome to the Smyrna Town Council meeting for September. Before we move into our meeting agenda, we do have citizens' comments tonight from Lynn Creech. Nope. Okay. Then we will move on into our meeting agenda, and I will call the meeting to order. And tonight, we have Chaplain Warren from the Smyrna Police Department here to lead us in prayer and our pledge by Mike Moss from Parks and Recreation. If you will stand with us, please.
Our Lord, our precious God, we give glory, thanks, and honor to you until this day that you have given and blessed. Gracious God, our Father, grant the council the grace tonight, the knowledge, the understanding, and all full wisdom to lead the town of Smyrna in a way that you would have it to go. And as you bless this city, we'll make sure together that we turn around and say thank you for the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain and Mike. Miss Diane, if you'll do roll call, please.
Councilman Cole,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Morrell,
Present.
Councilwoman Peebles,
Here.
Councilman Short,
Here.
Councilman Sullivan,
Present.
Vice Mayor Adkins,
Here.
Mayor Reed.
Here. We'll now move on to approval or corrections of the minutes of the August 20th, 2021, August 25th, 2021, and August 26th, 2021 meetings. Eric, are these in order?
They're correct form.
Thank you. Council, any additions or corrections? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, minutes pass. Correspondence and communications, Brian, anything tonight?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Awards and recognitions. Tonight we have our Fire Safety Week proclamation. Miss Diane, will you take care of that for us?
Sure will. Whereas the town of Smyrna is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our community. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And whereas Smyrna residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the alarms and knows how to respond. And whereas Smyrna Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas the 2021 Fire Prevention Week theme, Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety, effectively serves to remind us it is important to learn the different sounds of smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Therefore, I, Mary Esther Reed, Mayor of the town of Smyrna, do hereby proclaim October the 3rd through the 9th, 2021 as Fire Prevention Week in our community. And I urge all the people of Smyrna to learn the sounds of fire safety for Fire Prevention Week 2021. Proclaimed this 14th day of September 2021.
Chief Bill, if you'll come forward, please. Sir.
I thank y'all. Good.
1, 2, 3. I'm getting ready to get your camera, Chief Bill.
Chief, we appreciate all that you do and all that the fire department does to keep us all safe. And is there anything you'd like to add for fire prevention?
Yes, ma'am, if I could, I'd like to.
Do you want to go to the, you'll go to the podium? That way we can get you on TV. We want to make sure.
First, let me thank everybody for this proclamation. I greatly appreciate it. But the Fire Prevention Week is October 3 through 9. And I'd like to just remind everybody on Sunday, the 10th of October, we'll have our annual open house at Station 1 from noon to 5. And we want to invite everybody out that Sunday to join us. We'll have games for the children and a lot of educational things that we'll be doing as well. So again, it's October 10th, Sunday, from noon to 5. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Chief. Before we move on, anything else under awards and recognitions, Brian?
No, ma'am.
Before we move on to our consent agenda, are you Mr. Creech? If you will come forward. I'm going to go back and hit our citizens' comments at this time. If you will just state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Lynn Creech, 3728 Hendricks Hill Drive. My apologies for being late.
That's
The
okay.
lady said between 5:10 and 5:15 was when I would be speaking, and then I could leave, so my
Okay.
apologies for that.
That's no problem.
First, I'd like to thank the Smyrna Police Department for monitoring the speed and the people crossing the solid yellow line on the speed humps. Every time I see them there patrolling, I always thank them. I'm usually walking my dog, and one time an officer was on vacation, so another officer was filling in, and he was just sitting right out on the sidewalk, so everybody was doing what they were supposed to do, so I told him where the other officers are, so, you know, he can, so the people can't see them, and he could actually write more tickets. The officers tell me they write a lot of tickets, but on the days that they don't patrol, they get like 2 to 3 complaints there. I guess technically, people are not breaking the law because the line becomes dotted in the middle of the speed hump, and then it becomes a solid yellow line on either side. So I personally have almost been hit one time where people are going through the middle of the speed hump so they don't have to slow down, and then another car has to drive onto the sidewalk where I'm walking my dog, or else they're going to have an accident. Whenever I'm cutting my yard, I can hear horns blowing all the time where people are in the middle of going over the speed hump and somebody's trying to cut in the middle. So I don't know if there have been any accidents there or not, but I was just wondering if there could be a different solution. Some places in Davidson County, I'm not asking you to compete or anything, they actually have things in the middle of the speed hump that are erected vertically that cause people not to be able to drive through the middle. I haven't walked up Montgomery Way. I just usually walk there by the fountain and then go down to Rock Springs Road and then go back up Geary Drive to my house. But I know on a Saturday and Sunday mornings early, it feels like I'm walking on the side of I-24 when I'm on the sidewalk. So I just wish something could be done or looked at. But again, thank you to the Smyrna Police Department. They always take my call, and they have increased the patrols down there, but they express some type of futility for deterrence or something like that. They just kind of throw in their hands, and they suggested that I come here and address that. So
Great. Thank you, Mr.
thank you.
Creech.
My apologies if
That's
I went
okay.
over my 3 minutes.
No, you're good. Thank you. And Brian, let's have a little bit of dialogue. I mean, for the citizens, not only for Mr. Creech, but for those out there, speeding in neighborhoods is something that we are seeing all over the town of Smyrna. And I'll tell you, it's not only the town of Smyrna, but it is all across the area. It's something other mayors, when we all get together, do have discussion about. And we tasked staff with trying to find the best solution to this, and something that also allowed emergency vehicles to be able to get to homes in a timely manner. And this is kind of what we came up with. I know it's not the best solution, but we've got some that love it and are telling us how great it is, and we've got others who are upset about it, and because of the people going through the middle of it. So anything you want to add?
You know, the only thing I'd say is, you know, Montgomery Way was one of those places where we were inundated, I mean, with tons of speeding calls. Always had accidents out there, mailboxes being knocked down, those type of things. I will tell you from my perspective, We've not had a call to the town manager's office or to administration about anything on Montgomery Way since we put the speed humps in. We looked at several different kinds of speed humps. We do have to keep that center lane open so that the emergency vehicles can get through in a timely manner, and also not do damage to the fire trucks and the ambulances and those kind of things. We can take a look at. I don't know, Tom and I can talk about this offline. If there's anything we could do that would be a breakaway or something, but, my concern is if you put something up there and it's a breakaway, somebody's gonna figure that out and they're gonna run through it. We do know that we have people that are abusing that and going through the center, but I will tell you from the standpoint of accidents and speeding calls, it's slowed down tremendously on Montgomery Way.
Chief, by chance, do you know if there have been accidents where the speed hump actually is? Sorry, I should have prepared you
No, that's
before
fine.
putting you on the spot.
No, not that I'm aware of. I know that we have had officers go out there. People are not allowed by law to go through the middle of the speed hump. So I know for a fact that Sergeant Miller went out there one day and wrote, like in an hour, probably 15 tickets, including one UPS truck.
Packages
So
didn't
yes,
make it on time.
and it's just like you said earlier, it's an issue that we have all over our community, with the speeding and the reckless driving and things of that nature. And we ask that people call us and let us know when it's happening, and we'll get officers out there when we can. And again, but it's when we're on Montgomery Way, they're speeding in front of my house.
Absolutely.
So when they're speeding in front of your house and
Right.
everywhere else. It's just, unfortunately, we have a large amount of traffic now, and we have a large amount of complaints.
Yeah.
And we'll get to them as often and as quickly as we can. And I can assure you, when the officers get there, a lot of times, especially in regards to speeding, all of a sudden, nobody's speeding. Nobody's throwing litter out, nobody's vandalizing, nobody's doing any of that stuff when the officer's there. But when the officer drives away, then unfortunately those things happen. But again, if you will just let us know, we'll be glad to respond. We'll be glad to address your concerns.
Here, I didn't know it was illegal to go through the middle of the speed hump. Is that something we could put signage up about? I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing something out there. I mean, can y'all at least discuss
It's
that?
a
Yeah.
double yellow. It's marked, so.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we can have a little discussion and at least look into, is
And
there
it's
anything else?
important that the community know that we looked at all kinds of deterrents for speeding. We've looked at rumble strips, we've looked at different types of speed humps. Those were the most, what we felt as far as the structure of the speed humps, as far as it lasting and what it did allow us to have for the emergency vehicle passage, those type things. Rumble strips, we did a test on some rumble strips on one of our neighborhoods in town, and honestly, I think it sped them up because I think that some of the kids like the sound of their car going over the rumble strip. So, even with some of the folks that are coming through the center, they're slowing down to get through the center in most cases. Again, it goes back to what you said, Mayor. I know several people on Montgomery Way have called and thanked us. I've had a couple of folks that were less than happy that we had them out there and expressed that as well, so.
If they are coming up over the sides, because cars are trying to go at the same time, was there anything you saw? So I guess if we could look at that, if they are coming up onto the sidewalks kind of thing,
Yep.
to get up and around to go
we'll
at
look
the
at
same
If they're
time.
coming up on the sidewalk, that's reckless driving.
Right,
And if an officer can see that, and again,
Right.
it's a misdemeanor, has to happen in their presence.
right,
But if an officer can see it, then yeah, I mean, we'll definitely address it.
right. But I was hoping maybe there might be something that we could put along with the speed hump that they wouldn't be able to
Yes,
go
ma'am.
up and around. And I'm not sure if that's a Tom question that
That's
y'all
an
can kind
engineer
of look
question,
into.
yes.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. And
Okay.
We'll also look at if there's anything on the breakaway, that we could do to deter that center passage.
Well, and what I want citizens to know is that we are looking at every option that we can, and it's not just happening in your neighborhood. It is all over,
It's the
and it
number
is
one
so
complaint I
frustrating.
get.
Yep,
Number one.
yep, I
Thank you.
agree. Okay, so Tom and Brian, staff will look into if there's any other options.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Consent agenda, these are items that are determined by the town manager to be routine matters and not necessarily needing discussion. But if there is an item that council would like to pull off and look at individually, we can do that. I do like to read the consent agenda so those in the audience and those at home know exactly what we're voting on. We have quite a few items tonight on the consent agenda, so let me get started. Item A is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with TDOT for extensions of the ITS Phase 3, 4, and 5 project. Item B, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with Stanzel Electric relative to the traffic signal modifications project. Item C, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an extension agreement with Sessions Paving relative to the roadway patching repairs. Item D, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the annual stormwater report to TDEC. Item E, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an engineering services proposal with Thomas & Hutton relative to the sewer basin's flow monitoring. Item F, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with Wiser Consultants LLC for professional services for the Tridon Bridge replacement project. Item G, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with the Minnesota Children's Museum for the rental of dinosaurs, Land of Fire and Ice for the Smyrna Outdoor Adventure Center. Item H is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a performance agreement with the O'Donnells relative to the 2021 Depot District Car Show. Item I is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an extension contract with Wayne's Pest Control relative to the pest control service. And item J is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an updated agreement with Brenda Walsh for acquisition services for the Jeannie Lane project. Is there an item that council has questions on individually or an item you'd like to pull off and vote on separately?
I had some questions about B, the Stanzel Electric. Just
Okay, so item B
and E.
and E.
Yes.
Okay, we'll pull those items off. And we will, any other item that a council member would like to pull off and discuss individually? Seeing none for all of the rest of for all items on the consent agenda other than item B and E, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
A motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll go back to item B, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with Stanzel Electric relative to the traffic signal modifications project.
I was just curious as to the timeframe that those two projects would be done.
I think we put in a 90-day or 120 days to complete the project.
Okay. And they'll be doing both. Stanzel is contracting to do both of those, right?
Oh, you're talking about B and E?
B.
Just
Just
B,
B.
yeah. Just B.
Okay.
Okay, and then was timing also for E?
E, no, different question.
Okay.
Right.
Hi, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Strange. And I did see on the workshop that you talked about this. I was just curious as to, does this include all of the town or a certain area in the town?
It will. What'll happen is we'll spread these flow monitoring devices throughout the town. They have to collect data for winter and summer, different rain events, and there'll be rain gauges and whatnot, and then it'll be evaluated and let us know where the I&I projects need to go next, what areas we need to focus in on to make repairs or, fix manholes, whatever the case may be. So,
Okay, so this will be able to tell you all of that?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's a 14-month, so it's 12 months for data and then 2 months to,
Evaluation.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
That's what I was curious to know.
It says it's funded from American Rescue Plan grant. Is that the entirety of it?
Correct.
Very good.
Other questions? Okay, we'll go back to item B, and do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now go on to item E, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an engineering services proposal with Thomas & Hutton relative to the sewer basin flow monitoring. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now move on to old business, and under old business, we have 6 public hearings tonight. Our first public hearing is a consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, part of parcel 44, from R6 to PRD, requested by Alyssa Sibin, and the property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 39.1 acres and is located on Sam Ridley Parkway West and Motlow College Boulevard. This is a second reading. Kevin?
Okay, Mayor and Council, this is one that was deferred from last month, and they have actually requested it be deferred again for one more month.
Okay, and I'm going to be honest, I can't remember what we had to do last time. Did we have to do the public hearing, or did we not?
We did not hold a public hearing, and I have talked with Mr. Peach, and he may have talked with Eric as well, but they would recommend that we hold the public hearing at the same time we vote on it. So they would recommend not holding the public hearing and then advertise for next.
Okay. Eric, do we need to vote to defer?
Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion to defer?
I'll move to defer.
A motion to defer, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Just out of curiosity, what continues to be the rub here?
What they have told me is they are doing quite a bit more geotechnical investigation on the property. I think they had a couple of sinkholes they found a little concerned about, so I think they're wanting to get some more assurances on that before they purchase the property, I guess, so.
And can they indefinitely continue to defer?
I mean, as long as you all want to do that, yes, they could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item is deferred. We'll now move on to our next public hearing, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of the approval of the PRD for property located on tax map 54, parcels 14.01 and 14.02, requested by Bailey Neal with Legacy South Builders. The property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 19.47 acres and are located on Morton Road, and this is a second reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is an amendment to an existing approved PRD. Properties are located on Morton Lane, about 1,800 feet east of the intersection with Rocky Fork Amaville Road. Land use plan would support medium-density residential in this area. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R1, R3, and the Cedar Hills PRD in town, and RM in Rutherford County. The existing approved PRD is known as Stewart's Creek Cottages, is for a 55-plus development with 76 units and 38 duplex/zero lot line buildings. There's an existing single-family residence which would also remain, so a total of 77 units. The initial requested amendments were to reduce the house size to 1,300 square feet and to allow for 5-foot side setbacks instead of 7.5. However, the recommended amendments are different. The amendments as recommended would be to change the minimum house size from 1,500 to 1,450 and to allow a front setback of 25 feet instead of 35 feet, with the exception that the garage is still required to be set back at least 35 feet to allow for adequate room in the driveway for parking. These recommended amendments do not make any changes to the density, overall layout, or required architectural materials. They also do not change the side setback requirement of 7.5 feet, the fact that it's 55 and up, or the requirement that at least 2 bedrooms in each house are required to be downstairs. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request, and I would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin?
I don't have any questions. A couple comments, I guess towards Tim. And since Mark, I assume you're the abstention.
I'll be abstaining, yes.
Tim, it looks like you guys made some good adjustments there to the requirements. I appreciate you guys keeping the garage in place, keeping that parking in place, and the 7.5 side setback. So I think this is a good adjustment. Benefits the builder, but it also kind of keeps the things that we cared about in place. So I appreciate the work you guys did.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, this says it's a 55-plus development. Is it actually age restricted, or is it just a?
It's age restricted.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. You can still move there, though.
You can move there. He said you can move out of the county.
You didn't hear me? I'm gonna let that one go by, Steve. I'm saving one for you, though. It's all right. You owe me.
Show him your sign, HG. Okay.
You gotta get you one.
I got it. Mine won't say be kind.
No, I know. It won't be kind at all.
This is a public hearing, so is there anyone here to speak for or against this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and go to the council for a motion.
I move to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
We have one abstention, Ms. Diane. Our next public hearing is consideration of a resolution relative to a plan of services for properties located on tax map 32, part of parcel 19.01. Kevin?
Yeah, this is the plan of services. It is for the annexation, which is the next item on your agenda. Is a relatively standard document. You all see quite a few of these. It says detail the services the town would be providing upon effective date of the annexation. The town will be providing all services to this property upon effective date of annexation. The planning commission did review this and did recommend approval, and I would also recommend approval.
Questions on the plan of services for this project? Seeing none, I'll go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against the plan of services. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and go to council for a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D is our next public hearing. It's a consideration of an ordinance relative to the annexation and R3 zoning of property located on tax map 32, part of parcel 19.01, requested by J.M. Burns LLC on behalf of John Mitchell Burns, containing 23/100ths of an acre. The property requested is located south of Rock Springs Road and is a second reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is an annexation request for a very small portion of this parcel. It's directly adjacent to an existing portion of the parcel that had already been annexed, has been approved through the Planning Commission for the subdivision part of this, for the approval as well. This is south of Rock Springs Road. Again, land use plan would support low-density residential development in this area. Surrounding zoning is R3 in town and RM in Rutherford County. Again, as I said earlier, the town would be providing all services to this area upon annexation. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request, and I would also recommend approval.
Okay. Questions for Tim, Mark, or Kevin? Okay. Seeing none, I will go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and go council for a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item E is consideration of a resolution and memorandum of ordinance 21-35 relative to the annexation and R3 zoning of property located on tax map 32, part of parcel 19.01, comprising approximately of 23/100ths of an acre. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Jerry second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to our next public hearing, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the text of the Design Review Manual, Section 3.4, Architectural Character, and to the zoning ordinance, Article 5, Section 5.058, Lowry Street Overlay District, and Section 5.059, Enon Springs Gateway Overlay District, and this is a second reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, these are text amendments to the zoning ordinance and design review manual relative to architectural materials. These amendments are staff recommended based on recent changes in state law, which will bring the town into compliance with the new state law by not prohibiting any specific architectural materials. We are recommending that certain materials be limited. In short, any materials not specifically allowed as primary or secondary are now allowed as accents at no more than 10% of the entire structural elevation. As you stated, this would amend two sections of the zoning ordinance as well as one section of the design review manual, but it's fairly consistent across all three sections as to what we would be recommending on this. The Planning Commission did review this, did recommend approval, and I would also recommend approval.
Questions or comments for Kevin? this is a public hearing, so is there anyone here to speak for or against this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and go to council for a motion.
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Brian, I would ask that the next time we get together with our legislative delegation, this specific item be brought back up. Sometimes it is a little frustrating when things that are taking place within our community, which I feel like those that live in our community have a better handle on, that it's dictated to us as to what's going to happen. And so I would just like to have some face-to-face discussion with them, and I think this is one of those items that we just put on the agenda for the next time that we're together with them. And I know they don't like things passed down to them from the federal government, and I think we're kind of in the same boat. Are you all okay with us having discussion with them at our next meeting with them?
More than okay.
Okay. Okay. We'll move on to item G, which is a public hearing and a consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of the text of the zoning ordinance to add section 3.210 regarding location of a structure on a parcel, and this is a second reading. Kevin?
This is also a text amendment to the zoning ordinance relative to the location of a structure entirely on a parcel. This is a staff recommended amendment after a situation arose where a portion of a structure was actually built across a property line. So this would add that all portions of a building or structure must be fully located within the boundaries of the parcel of land on which it's constructed, which would include portions that might not necessarily be subject to setback requirements such as HVAC units, soffits, bay windows, retaining walls, etc. So this will put the requirement in the zoning ordinance, which would allow us to enforce it if we had to, if the situation ever arose again, which hopefully it will not. But it would allow us to enforce it if it did. So it would add a completely new section to the ordinance, number 3.210. And Planning Commission did review this, did recommend approval, and I would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this? Kevin, if it's only one in all this time, or one that we know of, then I think we're in
We're in
pretty good shape.
but
Pretty good shape.
we're worried about others, so.
That's right. That's right. Tim or Mark, anything?
This could be one of the most common sense things we've ever looked at ever.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, we will go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and go to council for a motion.
I move we approve.
Have a motion?
Second.
Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Our next item under old business is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 33, parcel 41.00, to go from R4 with ESO to PRD with ESO, requested by Janet Ibrahim, containing approximately 1.98 acres. The property is located at 2090 Rocky Fork Road. Kevin?
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a request that you all had looked at a few months ago and was deferred until we had a determination from TDEC on a potential stream. So I'll go through just to refresh everyone's memory of what we're talking about. This is a rezoning request at 2090 Rocky Fork Road. It's about 1,100 feet from the intersection with Old National Highway. It's directly across from Hunter's Chase Drive. The land use plan would support an office, retail, multifamily mix here. Surrounding zoning is R1, R3, and C2. This proposed PRD is for 10 single-family attached units constructed in 5 buildings. Access would be from Rocky Fork Road via a private drive. Units would be brick or stone and concrete siding with at least 20% of the exterior as brick or stone. Again, I did reattached the pattern book again for you in your packet there. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this with several conditions. All those conditions had been met at the time of second reading except for one, which was that staff was concerned with the amount of fill in the northeastern corner of the site with regard to stormwater requirements. And in addition, a stream bed appears to cross the site in that same area, and this needs to be investigated further. Needed to be addressed when the site plan is submitted. and after the public hearing was held, so you did hold a public hearing back in June on this already, the town council deferred second reading until TDEC had made a determination on the stream bed, and TDEC has investigated the stream bed and has determined it is a wet weather conveyance and not a contributing stream. This will still have to be considered as a part of any development on the property regardless of the zoning of the property, but it would not mean that a stream buffer would have to be created. I did attach the letter from TDEC as well that was submitted to us. So again, the planning commission did recommend approval, and I would also recommend approval.
Okay, on that picture, is that the driveways or is that the back facing Rocky Fork?
The 4 units, the back would be facing Rocky Fork Road. The street, there's an internal street that would come in and loop to the left, and all the access would be internally.
So if I'm on Rocky Fork between Fairfield and Hunter's Chase, I'm gonna be looking at the backs of their houses.
Yes, but there will be some landscaping in between there, yes, but yeah, they will be backed up to the road.
Will there be enough buffer so I don't have to look at the back of their house? I know what the back of my house looks like.
I'm kind of trying to recall if they had they may have had fences shown as well, but at least in enclosing their kind of their patio areas and that sort of thing. That's often, a lot of these townhome type developments like this, they have those in addition to. But there was going to be buffering in between the street and those houses for their purposes.
For
as
that
well as
purpose,
yeah.
okay.
And part of that, as I recall, was the fire safety portion of it, with the hammerhead at the end there, so the trucks could come and turn around. And the design of that made more sense to do it this way than it did the way you're talking.
And I don't mind that, I just want to make sure those people that are on, even though their houses are facing Hunter's Chase and the other, they still got to look at it. And as you're driving down Rocky Fork Road. So, but as long as the buffer's going to be there. Kevin, you're making a funny face, why?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Well, that's putting you on the spot, isn't it?
Yeah. I will say that happens a lot. There's a lot of
That you make the funny face?
Well, that too. Now, what I was meaning, what happens a lot is the developments face internal streets and the roads back, and the houses
Okay.
back up too. Often they're single-family homes, not necessarily duplexes or whatever, but
Okay.
there's a lot of developments around town that have that same,
Okay.
similar situation.
What portion of the property is the
stream.
the stream?
It's kind of on the, if you're looking at
Right
it,
corner.
the top right corner.
And does it flow across over into KOA or Smyrna
I
Campus?
believe it does, and it also crosses, I think it kind of comes across from the R3 property to the north and west there as well. I think that's where it kind of originates, and the water just kind of flows off of there and kind of flows through when it rains enough that it runs off. But it's not a stream that's have any continuity to it or anything.
Does it flow left or does it flow kind of south of that? I would assume it flows towards the left because that's coming off a hill kind of.
I think, yeah, I'm not completely sure which direction. I didn't look at that. I just know it is in that area there. So,
Other questions or comments?
Ken owns 2 acres under non-PRD zoning. What would it fall under?
well, it's currently zoned R4, and so they could develop it now as R4. They have enough road frontage, 2 or maybe 3 duplexes, I can't recall exactly. And so they could develop it like that without any zoning coming to you at all. So this would just allow for them to, I believe it was 3, so this would allow them to build 2 additional duplexes with that internal street. But it's the same type of use. R4 does allow for the duplex type development.
Other questions or comments?
And is there some green space on there somewhere? Other than I know the buffer and I see all the trees. Is
Yeah,
that-
there's mainly the buffer around it. There is some improvements in the, kind of toward the front of it there. There is gonna be a little bit of some amenities there. So not a large development, so it wouldn't be a large amenity, but there are some amenities shown there on the front. Again, as you enter the site.
you said, can you tell me again what you said about what they will have to do to the stream? They will have to take it into consideration, meaning
It'll have to
what?
be, yeah, I mean, it's part of the stormwater of design of the site. They'll have to take it into consideration that if there's water crossing this coming from either direction, they'll have to take that into account.
Okay.
And, account for it to let it continue to go that way, go through there. But, it's not a stream where you have to have a TDEC requires, a buffer along the stream and that sort of thing for erosion control and to filter stormwater to the stream, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And that would not be required.
That's the way I read the letter. It's not that TDEC said that you can't do it, that you have to take care of this under their supervision as far as just exactly how you detailed.
Right.
Other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll now move on to new business and our Planning Commission report. Our first item is consideration of an ordinance relative to the annexation and PRD zoning of properties located on tax map 50, parcel 33.02, and part of parcel 33.00, requested by Oliver Constable on behalf of Surrey Homes LLC and John Mitchell Burns, containing approximately 31.51 acres. Annexation would also include approximately 4,141 linear feet of the existing right-of-way of Lee Road. The properties are located at 4852 Rocky Fork Road and 4973 Lee Road, and this is a first reading. Kevin?
Yes, this is our annexation and PRD request located on Lee Road. It's about 2,000 feet west of the intersection with Rocky Fork Road. The land use plan would support medium-density residential as well as office, retail, multifamily in this area. Surrounding zoning is all RM in Rutherford County. The town would be providing all services to this area upon annexation except for water, which would be provided by CUD. CUD does not have adequate fire flow in this area at this time, and they have estimated it would be 3 to 4 years before any upgrade is completed to address this issue. Sewer would be provided via the Olive Branch extension currently under construction. The proposed PRD is for a 69-lot, single-family development. Access would be from Lee Road. The minimum square footage of the houses would be 1,800 square feet. Overall density is about 2.19 units per acre. And I did attach the pattern book that was submitted. As the town council is aware, the town is working with surrounding jurisdictions to establish a route for a roadway connection from I-24 and Rocky Fork Road to I-65 and McEwen Drive. Staff will have a recommendation for a consultant to do this study at the October Town Council meeting with an expected 6-month time frame for completion of the study. This project does lie within the study area of that road project. The Planning Commission did review this, did recommend denial unanimously. I would also recommend the denial at this time.
Mark and Kevin and Tim, talk a little bit about the reason behind.
Well, as everybody here knows, we've been working on that future interchange for a while. I know that we're working with our neighboring municipalities as well to try to plan that roadway correctly. And we just felt like this butted right up against that without any assurances that that road is exactly where it needs to be. So for those reasons, I think we decided we needed to put it off until we did our study and decide more so where that road will be before we have to go through a subdivision later on.
We sure don't want to have happen what happened at 24, at Sam Ridley.
That's right.
On this, so,
And that roadway, that's from this PRD is probably 150 feet. So if that roadway adjusts,
a little.
a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just too risky right now.
Yeah.
Have you made the applicants aware of, did they understand?
I don't
They had
know.
representation at the Planning Commission meeting,
Okay.
so. And I've had several conversations with them over the past probably 6-8 months that they've been talking about wanting to bring this project into
Okay.
us.
Say again, kind of where we are with Nolensville, and I know that they've all agreed to what they're going to do financially to help us with
Yeah,
the,
yeah. All jurisdictions which just for the public's consumption is Brentwood, Franklin, Nolensville, Williamson County, Rutherford County, and the town, are financially committed to paying for the study that we're proposing. Had met with them through online, meeting with all the representatives from those folks, and basically to allow for them to provide any input they wanted to towards our consultant that we were looking at, and they basically more or less said, we trust the town to make that decision. And so we are working through that process, and we'll have a recommendation to you at your next workshop for the October council meeting to go under contract with someone to do that study for us.
Okay. Questions for Kevin on any of this? We really appreciate all you've done and Brian's done and working with the other jurisdictions, and I know I talked to the mayors when we're there, but y'all are the ones that are digging in and doing the hard work in getting this taken care of, so we really appreciate it. I feel like we're further along in regards to regional connectivity for that road than we've ever been, so we appreciate that. So, hearing what Kevin and Mark and Tim have said, do I have a motion?
I'm going to move we deny this annexation and PRD zoning request.
Okay, I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is denied. We'll move on to item 2, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of properties located on tax map 27N, Group C, part of parcels 12.00 and 13.00 to go from R4 to R6. It's requested by Jason Lloyd. The properties requested to be rezoned contain approximately 24/100ths of an acre and are located at 323 and 325 Lake Farm Road, and this is a first reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a rezoning request. It's for a part of two separate parcels addressed at 323 and 325 Lake Farm Road. It's about 1,400 feet east of the intersection with Nissan Drive. Land use plan would support a medium-density residential development in this area. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R1, R4, and R6. These properties were rezoned to R6 from R4 in 2002 when the R6 district was created. Mr. Lloyd rezoned a portion of each parcel to R4 with a plan to create a third lot and build a duplex in 2009. And he did that because there wasn't enough land area to create a third lot to build a third quadruplex at that. It didn't meet the minimum lot size requirements to create that third lot. But it was large enough for an R4 lot. And so he did the rezoning, however, he never actually went through with the subdivision and re-subdividing the property. So there's two separate tracts that still exist there, not three. The proposal he would like to do now is to combine the area that's currently zoned R4 with the lot addressed at 323 Lake Farm Road and build some additional units there. If the property is rezoned, up to 5 additional units could be built on the site. Per the R4 zoning, 2 additional units could be built. So it's a difference between a 2 or up to 5. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request, and I would also recommend approval.
Tim or Mark, anything to add?
Well, I know that, one of the things we look at consistency in surrounding zoning. When you look at it, we see that this is a combination of R6 and R4, so to approve this would not be inconsistent with what's there now. We think it, as far as taking a lot that can be cleaned up and improved, you accomplish that as well. So based upon that, that was my understanding. We, as a commission, voted to approve this.
Other questions or comments?
So the other R6s that are there, you say this one can handle up to 5 additional units on it, correct?
If you combine everything together into one lot of record, you'd have about 27,000 square foot lot. And you can have, the max density is 1 unit per 3,000 square feet, so they could have 9. There's an existing quadruplex there, so there would be 5 additional.
Are any of the other R6s that are adjacent to it or nearby that dense?
They're all pretty much all quadruplexes or duplexes in that area. I don't know, I haven't looked at all of them to know if they're at the maximum density or not. If they're, probably not, because the minimum lot size in R6 is 15,000 square feet. So there probably are some lots in there that are 15, 16,000 square feet with a quadruplex on them. So it probably wouldn't be quite as, this would be a little bit more dense than that, or could be.
So with 5 units on that lot, it would not be out of character with the rest of the property, is that correct? The rest of the neighborhood?
It would be consistent, from a zoning standpoint, it would be consistent. It might be a little bit more dense, but some of those lots that are larger, there's nothing preventing them from adding additional units either. One of the part of the reason this lot, the unit that's on 323 is pushed as far to the left as possible, because it actually, the original quadruplex that was there burned, and they rebuilt, and he shifted it over to give himself as much room as possible there to potentially build something in the future, so.
Jerry,
I was
did you
kinda-
have something?
Yeah, I was going to go back to kind of what HG's asking. If I understand correctly, I think, like you said, most of those are quadruplexes down through there. And on both sides, it's a quadruplex, is that correct?
Yes.
And if we leave it as it is now, can they do quadruplex, or does it have to be a duplex?
It could only be a duplex.
Okay. So there's nothing that will allow us just to do quadruplex, is that correct?
Right.
Other questions or comments? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
I'll just go back to what Tim's comment was about trying to make sure we're consistent with the zoning. You know, the zoning allows a certain product to come in there and be put there, so everything around it, everything that borders it has got the same zone. So that's how we looked at it. That's how the planning commission looked at it. That's all.
Anything else?
My concern was the density on it as well. Jerry, your question was kind of what my question was, because I think if it's a quadruplex, then it does fit in, but if there's more than that, I don't know that it is as consistent. And I understand about the zoning and wanting to be consistent on the zoning. It's just the type of building that's going to go there and how dense it's going to be.
And he may only want to build a quadruplex. I can't speak for him, you
Right.
know.
Well, that's a fair question too, Kevin. I mean, hearing some of the comments.
I just want to make sure everyone understood what the
Yeah.
implications could be.
But it's a fair question hearing the comments. I mean, we're looking at a zoning change to match what's all around it. But can this body grant a rezone and also limit it to a quadruplex?
No.
Okay, that was my question.
And does that go back to your other comment you made with some of the other R6s that if they chose to add on, they certainly could?
If their lot size was large enough,
Yeah.
yes.
And if you
One
look at
unit
it-
per 3,000 square feet is what they
Yeah.
would be allowed to have. yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's several of them up there that looks like that could do
They
that.
probably are big enough, yes.
Yeah, the lot just 2 or 3 down that's R6 looks like it's twice the size of these lots. It could easily add more space, it looks like.
Other comments? And I guess Jerry and Raquel, I'm kind of in the same boat initially, but then when you start talking about that the others could go back and add to them, you know, it's kind of a little bit of a dilemma. Okay, other comments?
I think we've made some comments, in conversation recently specifically around R6, and we've talked a lot about when it fits an area or when it's being implemented in an area that's consistent. And that's kind of where I'm falling on this. I don't really like the density, but it is R6 all the way around, and it fits everything else around it. It's not really this applicant's problem that his neighbors maybe chose to only build a quadruplex, even though they could have built more, right? So that's where I'm at. I don't.
And that's where I fall too. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like it, but I agree.
I feel like to be consistent with what we've done in the past, if there's a place for it, this is the place.
Yeah. Other
As
comments?
rare as approving R6s is.
Right.
That's what we talked about in planning. As rare as finding an R6 favorable, this is one of those extreme rarities that made the fit because of the land use and what's around it. I think that's why the planning commission fell on the same opinion, so.
Yeah. Other comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I'm opposed also.
Miss Diane, are you good, or do we need to do a roll call? And Jerry, we're opposed. Okay, motion passes. Item 3 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, part of parcel 67.14 from C2 to PCD, requested by Lance Knurk. And the property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 63 100ths of an acre and is located on Cheney Road, and this is a first reading. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a rezoning request. It is on Cheney Road. It's about 600 feet north of the intersection with Sam Ridley Parkway. A land use plan would support commercial development in this area. This proposed PCD is for a quick service oil change business. Access would be via a private drive, which will connect Cheney Road and Potomac Place. The requested property is part of a larger parcel, which will be divided. That plat has been submitted and been reviewed and approved. It has not been recorded yet, but has been approved. The proposed building would be approximately 1,563 square feet, would have 3 bays. It would be built primarily with brick and stone, with a small amount of ephes as an accent on the cornice. I did attach the pattern book that was submitted with the request. The Planning Commission did review this request, did recommend approval, and I would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this?
Kevin, the large C2 parcel above it, that's the hotel, is that right?
No, the one directly adjacent to it is actually, nothing's been approved on that side. On the other side of Potomac Place is the hotel.
Other questions? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
But did Rocket, well, not, okay. Miss Diane, did you get that? Okay. Motion passes. We'll now move on to item 4, which is consideration of a request for the abandonment of an existing drainage easement on tax map 28, parcel 88.01. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a drainage easement that was, has been requested that the town abandon. It is on one parcel there, it's off of Noel Lane. This was recently developed as the Anthem at Creekside Apartments. This is a drainage easement that was originally dedicated to the town in 1987. With the recent subsequent development of the tract, the drainage easement is no longer necessary, as the drainage has been installed in another location on the property, and the final plat reflecting the new easements that are necessary in the correct locations has been approved by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did review this and did recommend approval, and I would also recommend approval.
Any questions for Kevin?
And just for clarification, there's a dark kind of shaded line to the far right side of the drawing, and that's the easement that we're talking about.
Questions for Kevin? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now move on to item B under new business, which is our packaged liquor board report, and there were no applications for the town to consider at this time. So we'll move on to item C, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendments to the municipal code 13-407, 408, and 409, addressing the storage and location of inoperable and unlicensed vehicles at automotive service and repair facilities, and this is a first reading. Eric, you taking this?
Yes, this is basically just a property maintenance and enforcement measures that would be codes out there if people are not following what they're supposed to do. It's going to require that vehicles be repaired inside buildings as opposed to being shade tree repaired.
Okay. I got to make a note or I'll forget to ask. So, questions for Eric on this?
The code's not currently address that, and what's the amendment's purpose?
No, the municipal code does not. It's in the zoning ordinance, but it's not in the municipal code.
Okay.
Like for instance, behind Hardee's, would that then have to be fenced? Do you know which where I'm talking
I'm
about?
not sure there, but where we're looking at basically is downtown, is that Second Avenue? Second Street, behind the downtown area. We've got about 4 places in a row that are doing car repairs, and they're not putting up fencing and that kind of, I'm not sure which one you're
The
talking about.
one I'm talking about used to be the old Western Auto.
Yeah, we'd have to look at that. I know which one it is, I think I know which one you're talking about
Yeah.
over there, but yes, if it's getting some of the bulk vehicles that are just sitting there waiting to be repaired and/or are in disarray, there's.
Getting them behind the fence.
We had it's not in municipal code, but it's in the, it's in the zoning ordinance. And what we're trying to do is clean that up so that they match,
Okay.
and we can enforce that.
Well, I've noticed, as I said in the last meeting, I've started to notice some of that more around town. I don't know if it's been there and I've just not noticed it, or.
What are you doing out behind Western Auto?
You never know where I'm out behind. You might just be surprised where I pop up.
Looks like the back of her house.
That's right. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the golf course maintenance lease with Smith Turf. Hal, I
Yes,
was a little
ma'am.
bit worried.
We made it.
We did. You told us we would.
September 1st, we opened the RFP, and Smith Turf is the low bidder, and I'd like to ask council to authorize the mayor to sign the lease agreement.
Questions for Hal on this? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Hey, Hal, I do want to thank you for the new golf carts, by the way.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they finally came in.
Oh, good,
It's the ones we were talking about.
Yeah, the ones that we approved several months ago.
Yeah.
good.
Waiting on
Okay.
chips.
Item E is consideration of an ordinance to amend the Smyrna Municipal Code Title II, Boards and Commissions, Chapter 5, Sister City Committee, Section 502, Memberships, first read, and this is a first reading.
So this one will keep the same number of members to the Sister City Committee, but it will remove the requirement that one of those members be a educator in northern half of Rutherford County.
Okay. Any questions for Eric or Jerry on this?
I assume we're just having trouble finding somebody to fill that consistently?
Well, yes, we've gone through a couple of different ones, and I think with COVID and all those types of things, all the teachers are really busy right now as part of it. Obviously, we're not traveling to Japan right now, and we've got a teacher already, a retired teacher that's on there, so our thought was, let's go back to kind of the way it was. I think it was a good try, but it just hadn't worked the way we wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. Seeing no other questions, do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Anything under other tonight? Moving on to status reports. Directors, anything tonight? Seeing none. Miss Diane? Brian?
Mayor and Council, I have a couple of things I'd like to share with you. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize that a very successful fish fry was put on this weekend by the Smyrna Rotary Club, and several people from the town were involved. The honorees this year were the first responders, and several of our first responders were actually amongst the group that were recognized. Had an estimated over 2,000 people at the fish fry this year is what the latest number that I had. Those that were honorees included Assistant Fire Chief James Lawrence, Captain Shane Patterson, ladder driver Jeremy Stokes, and driver Michael Medingo from Smyrna Fire. And from the police department, we had Detective Sergeant Kevin Krieb, Detective James Scott, Lieutenant Earl Barnes, and a telecommunicator Megan Cox from the Smyrna Police Department. So we appreciate the Rotary Club reaching out and honoring our folks. And again, the Fire Department Honor Guard did a fabulous job. They not only presented the colors, but Chief, you're going to have to help me with the ceremony of the ringing of the bells.
Oh, the memorial bell.
The memorial bell in honor of 9/11 services, so we really appreciate that. We're also excited to gather once again for the Town of Smyrna's Christmas Parade. We are in the planning stages, and online you can now sign up to put a float or a car or something in the Christmas Parade. You can do that by going to www.townofsmyrna.org, and we have set aside Sunday, December 5th at 2 p.m. for this year's Christmas Parade, and our theme will be Tennessee Christmas again. We want to continue, Mayor, pay attention. It is important that we pick litter up.
Especially that you throw out in front of your parking spot.
I want you to know, I think that litter came from the spot to the right of me. I'm not sure it wasn't there when I parked my truck.
there behind Western Auto is what I.
Yeah.
Stuck my feet.
Yeah. A little bit of joking there, but we do take it very serious. The town has a Love Where You Live campaign going on. We're working through that. You can also adopt a highway or adopt a roadway called Public Works. Thank you to the town personnel who volunteered to clean the town section of the Adopt a Highway. And folks, be kind and don't litter. This is our community, and it's an individual decision to put litter out of the cars and those kind of things. So carry a trash bag, do what you have to. Make sure you empty your car's garbage at the filling stations or when you get home. Please don't throw it on our streets. Take a little pride in our community. Depot Days is back, coming up very quickly, September 24th in the historic Depot District on Front Street. We'll have the prelude to the Depot Days is a classic car show, not to be confused with a cruise-in. A car show is where you bring your car for a certain amount of time and put it on display. Once the cars are located on Friday night, they have to be in by 5:45. We close the street, and we will not open the street back up to 8:30. So if you want to put a car in the car show, please come prepared to stay with your car, talk to people, tell them about the car, those kind of things. But it is not a cruise-in. For safety purposes, that street will be closed. Then, of course, on September the 24th, that's the car show. And then the next day from 10 to 4, with over 100 vendors on the street on the 25th, Depot Days will be kicking off and be available for the community to come out and enjoy some fellowship, food, fun, and several vendors. The last thing I want to share with the council, I do want to recognize, unfortunately, we do have 2 of our employees that, since the last time we've met, that have losses in their family. Randy Roberts, who works for us in the utility department, his stepson passed away. And then also Lieutenant Cutshaw from the police department, his brother passed away this past week, and we just want to extend our condolences, continue to keep those families in our prayers. Mayor and council, that's all I have this evening.
Questions for Brian? Okay, Eric?
I have nothing.
Raquel?
You said that so fast. Okay.
First, welcome back, Steve. Glad that you are well and able to join us again.
Thank you.
Some folks are clapping on your behalf, so you were missed. Okay. Secondly, I was also going to speak about the Wings of Freedom Fish Fry. That it was a great event, and there were a lot of people that came out, and I'm actually in the law office with Robert Stevens, who is the president this year. And so I asked him about some of their totals, and so he gave me some more information, so I'm going to add to what Brian has already said about the fish fry. But he said there were 60 cars in the classic car show, and there we prepared over 2,000 pounds of food. It was estimated at 2,100 to 2,300 people that were in attendance that day, and over $200,000 was raised, and most of that will be going back into the community, including contributing to the Phase 2 of the Freedom Playground project, which is the ADA compliant restroom facility. And it was the biggest fish fry to date, and that Rotary is looking forward to growing even bigger next year. So kudos to everyone in Rotary, and for all the citizens and neighbors that came out to support. And congratulations to all the honorees as well. Also, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the 20th year memorial recognition of 9/11 as well. I can't believe it's actually been 20 years since that has happened, but I know that you and Brian also attended Stewart's Creek, and you may be going to talk about that, so sorry if I brought that up too soon, but thank you all for standing in regards to the memorial for that specific event. And Farmers Market, I've been going on Saturdays, and I believe this is going to be the last Saturday for the Farmers Market for the season, but it's been a good turnout. I'm always glad to see all the people that are coming out every Saturday. And also, Gennardi's had a birthday this past month as well, so congratulations to Gennardi's. And last of all, I'd like to wish my daughter Nora a happy birthday. She turned 18 last week, so, and that's all I have.
Happy birthday to Nora. HG?
I'll have to concur. The fish fry was a roaring success. It's one of those events where the community gives and Rotary gives back. It's I've always admired the way that this is a good place to give money to, where you know a whole lot of it's not going into the administration that of the event or the organization, that it is going right back into the community. And speaking of going back into the community, the Depot Days, of course, is sponsored by the Smyrna Independent Merchants Association, and it is held in conjunction with the town of Smyrna. All of the different departments seem to have a hand in it, and the Parks and Recreation Department, of course, taking lead. The Fire Department, the Police Department are always very visible, but then some of the other departments are in the background, still participating. On Friday night, I can't believe you left this out, Brian, the O'Donnells will be playing. I think we may have even we've referenced that in the agenda tonight. Tomorrow, what is today? Tuesday, Wednesday. I think Thursday is my daughter-in-law's birthday. She probably won't see this. She lives in Nashville, but maybe if somebody sees Crystal, will y'all pass it along? I sometimes with the daughter-in-law, you need points sometimes, you know. And that brings me to be kind. This has appeared upon my desk. I do not know where it came from, but I've heard that it's very good advice.
Do you
Mary Esther?
always take that?
I do try. We all have slip-ups, don't we?
Some more than others.
Wonder what she meant by that. Yeah.
Oh, it's being kind.
Yeah, there you go, Mary
It's being
Esther.
kind.
And also shop local.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sam?
Wow, it's hard to add after HG and Raquel, but, maybe to tell you that it's always good to hear about the fish fry. It's something where Brian, myself, and Jerry, although we're there, we don't really get to see a lot of it. We're pretty much elbow deep in catfish and chicken fingers and French fries and is there anything else we cook? It just becomes a blur. But, you know, it was really our pleasure to do that on the 20th anniversary and the 19th year as Rotarians that we have recognized 9/11 and, you know, through the period of times recognized different veterans from wars, you know, first responders and whatnot. It is a privilege to do that. And, you know, 9/11 is so significant. It's one of those life-changing events where I bet everybody knew where they were at when it happened, what they were doing, and probably can still look back to just the disbelief of what was happening and not believing it was happening. And then, you know, coming together as a nation to rally against terrorism. So it's an honor for me to serve a small part in the remembrance and to help give back with Rotarians to our community for the better good. So with that, that's it.
Okay. Jerry?
Well, just echoing what they've already said, but Saturday night was pretty awesome. The whole day, I told somebody we got there at like 8 o'clock that morning. I got home at I think it was 10 that night, and I worked 11 more hours that day than I would normally work, so I was kind of tired. But it was the Rotary Club does a fantastic job, and just what they do for the community. And I've only been a Rotarian for about 3 years, and since I retired, and it's just to watch the things that they do, it's pretty amazing, and how they do it for the community. And I think somebody else said it down there that the money that goes in there goes out. It doesn't go for somebody that's CEO or something else. It goes out to the community, and that's pretty special. And this town always steps out, and I've seen that for 60-something years. They're always there to help and to reach out. So it's just it's an honor to be part of it. To be honest with you, it's an honor to be a part of this community. I also want to say my condolences to the Roberts and the Cutshaw families. I didn't know about Mr. Cutshaw's brother. I kind of know him from the outside as well, and so I didn't know that. So I want to say my condolences to them as well. Gennardi's, I know Brian and I spent a little time over that night when they had their anniversary, and the ice cream is awesome. They had a couple of people singing that night that were very good. I know one's a backup singer for, I believe it was Martina McBride. So it was really an enjoyable evening, and congratulations to them for 3 years. That's just it's kind of become a staple in downtown there of our town. So congratulations to both of them. And Mayor, that's all I've got.
Great, thanks. Steve?
First, thank you, Raquel. Thanks for everyone that reached out to me. It's great to be back. For those of you that don't know, I had a pretty rough bout with COVID, including COVID pneumonia, but I am back at 100% with a little bit of a dry cough, but other than that, I'm good. But what it has brought to my attention is how serious the virus is and how much people in our community are suffering for it. So I want to, add my prayers to all of those families that are struggling with COVID right now. They have family members both in and out of the hospital. Specifically, I have a very close family, Justin Bubba Warren and Melissa Warren. Justin goes by Bubba. He's 30 years old. He's in Murfreesboro fighting for his life right now. He's intubated and unconscious and struggling. So we need prayers for this awful virus, for the people that are working. I can tell you from being in the hospital for 5 or 6 days, the nurses and the doctors are putting in a lot of effort and a lot of time, and there's a lot more people that would be dying without their work. So let's, if you can, make sure to thank a doctor or a nurse and keep all of those guys in your prayers. I missed the fish fry. I was fortunately driving across country to pick up my son, Kevin, who is home from the Marine Corps. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years or 3.5. He still has 6 months of active duty left, but he is back in Smyrna and will be participating in a internship with the Lee Company for the next 6 months. So we're glad to have him home, and if any of you see him around, give him a pat on the back and tell him thank you for his service. Fortunately, he didn't have to go in harm's way. He had what I consider, as another Marine, I considered a cush job. I was infantry. He was a coach and a primary marksman instructor for new recruits. So I can assure you that I have not let him forget that he had a cush job. But anyway, as his dad, I'm glad he did, and I'm glad he didn't have to go anywhere. So anyway, but yeah, that's kind of what's been, going on in my family, and I want to thank all of you guys, the council. I've missed quite a few meetings the last couple of weeks dealing with all of this, and you guys carried the torch and kind of kept going without really missing a beat, which tells me I'm useless, but I appreciate that.
You figured all that out on your own, didn't you?
It didn't take much, right?
The meetings were a little shorter, too.
I bet they were. So,
Jerry!
That's what's called a zinger.
I think
I'm just repeating what somebody else said.
I think HG probably said that first. Well, it's glad to be back.
Yeah, Steve, we're glad you're better. Honestly, I know all of us were concerned, and you put a little scare into the rest of us. So we're glad you're back, and we're glad Kevin's home safely. Thank him for his service, and you as well. Happy birthday to Nora, 18. That's a big birthday. I hope Mama's ready for that one, because here she comes, okay? Continue to think about our schools and the teachers and the staffs there. They are still battling a lot of infection and a lot of missing teachers and roles having to be filled by other people, and masks or no masks, and it's just all that going on in the school system right now. So continue to keep them kind of in your thoughts and prayers. To Randy Roberts and Lieutenant Cutshaw for their losses, we are sorry for your loss and give you our condolences to those family members. I was at the fish fry as well. I see Sean and Susan sitting back there. We dined together that night, and it was a great event. I'm glad to hear over $200,000 was raised. I think, last I heard, that's the highest number, if I'm not mistaken. So to you, all the people that are Rotarians here that serve as a Rotary member, thank you for what you do. It's a hard-working job. I know when I come, it's easy for us just to come in and sit down and dine and enjoy each other's company. But I always try to come back to the pit where Jerry and Tim and HG's working in the food line, and Brian back there cooking, and it's hot, and they got towels on, and they're dehydrated. It looks like they've just fought with Rocky. So thank you guys for putting in the time and the service, and to all of our first responders as well. Chief, the Color Guard did a great job presenting the colors that night. The big flag out there is just really patriotic, so thank you for making sure all that went off without a hitch. It's always awesome. Eric is here tonight, and Jeff is not. Jeff Peach is not, but Jeff had a good reason not to be here this week. Jeff's daughter was married this week, so I wanted to congratulate Jeff and Katie on losing a daughter to a new son-in-law, but I'm sure they're all excited. So Jeff's probably watching. Knowing Jeff, he's probably got his phone on right now watching. So Jeff, congratulations to you and Katie. The community lost a couple people recently, and they're not related that I know of, but Marlou Patterson passed away. And Marlou, if you knew Marlou, gosh, what a character she was. She was just a comic and a lot of fun to talk to. And so the community is going to be, they're going to miss her laughter, right? She was always fun. And also Sue Patterson, another Patterson name. She was always an ardent encourager and supporter for me, especially when I was campaigning and doing all the things that we do to try to become elected. And she would call me. I'd send her a little annual calendar from my business, and she would call me just to let me know she got it. Sweet, sweet lady. So to her family, I want to wish condolences and prayers for their loss to Robert, Charles, and Kim. They've lost a sweet, sweet lady. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Thanks. Couple of housekeeping items. Raquel talked a little bit about the farmers market, and this Saturday is the last Saturday of the season from 8 to noon. And we want to thank Carpe Artista and the Smyrna Parks and Recreation Department for making sure that we all had fresh local food and handmade crafts available for our community. So go down and visit this Saturday from 8 until noon. Also want to remind you not to miss your opportunity to run at the Top Gun Night Run. Registration is open for our night run. The race will be held Friday, November 5th at 7 p.m. in Lee Victory Recreation Park. It is a 3.7-mile course and includes Smyrna, Rutherford County Airport, and Smyrna Golf Course, with the finish line at the Captain Jeff Coos Memorial. Spectators and runners can enjoy live music and the food trucks there in the park. We have seen the medals and we have seen the t-shirts, and they are well worth the $50 to run. I will tell you, they are super cool. So if you have not gotten signed up, we encourage you to go ahead and do that. It is limited to 650 participants. And those funds do go for the upkeep of the memorial. Couple of items. Brian and myself, Jeff Dwyer, is that it for us?
Kathy was there.
Oh, and Kathy. Sorry, I forgot. Were able to go out to Stewart's Creek High School on Friday the 10th. They were doing a flag retirement ceremony. It is really a moving ceremony, and the work those kids put in to that ceremony was quite spectacular to see. And if they are any indication of the type of citizens we're going to have in our community, the town of Smyrna is going to be just fine, because they were patriotic. They were, it was just really nice. But the thing that kind of struck me the most was none of those students that were there were around when the towers went down. And it was kind of that first time that had happened, that we'd been out there, that it made me think about it. And so that's kind of hard to believe, and I think that makes it imperative for us that we let those that come after us that weren't here during that time know what it was like on that day, and know how we all felt, not only on that day, but the days after, because I don't know that our nation ever pulled together like it did, that I remember on those next days. So HG, I know we laugh and joke about be kind, but I think now more than ever, we as a community and we as neighbors and we as individuals can do that ourselves on a daily basis. So I encourage you to try to be kind and make this a better place.
I was never joking.
You aren't? No? Got it. Chief, the stair climb, our firefighters did the stair climb, did they? Did I see that? Our honor guard participated in the stair climb, so we appreciate them doing that as well. We've talked about the fish fry, and I will say the fish fry is somewhat of a carryover from the fish fry that my granddad and them started years and years ago. The first one was actually started to raise money, and I doubt that they raised $200,000 when they sat around under his porch talking about the fish fry. But I think he would be so excited to know the number of organizations that are helped in the town of Smyrna, and the camaraderie and the community coming together. Robert, I see you out there shaking your head. I think he would be really excited to know that. So thank you for continuing to carry on the tradition, those of you in Rotary. It was something that was very important to my granddad and very important to our family. And for months prior to, it was gotten ready for, and so we appreciate what you all have done for that event and continuing to carry on their tradition.
Mayor Esther, can I just interject something?
Yeah.
Because our law office was at the Victory House.
Yep.
And we have still had people who would come by, and that's what they would say, is they would remember the fish fry being out back in the barn, and being out back in the barn.
A lot of people don't realize, the men cooked the fish. In the outdoor kitchen back there is where they took care of all that. So
Well, the men cooked fish this time, Mayor.
did they? Really? Huh, interesting. That must mean that you probably could cook at home too in the kitchen.
I can.
You can.
Ask my wife,
I will. I'll take care of that.
my other boss.
Your other boss. Robert Mullins is in the audience. Robert, we are so glad to see you, former mayor, and glad to have you here tonight. I know that you've spent many a nights right here in this chamber, so we're glad to see you. Council, anything else?
I have one other thing, and I will be in deep trouble if I don't mention this, but Connie and I are going to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary on the 18th. So I just want to congratulate Connie and send her my love and tell her happy anniversary. And this way, if I cover it at the next meeting, I'll have it covered in both meetings and I'll be in good shape. So
Do you
happy
get
40th
her-
anniversary to my wife.
Do you get her a gift for
There's
your
going to be
anniversary?
a very, very nice dinner that I'll probably cook, you know. What was that, Todd?
Todd?
Yeah, what was that, Todd? Something to say, Todd?
Mark said that he gets a gift for his wife, so,
Yeah.
got it? Okay.
I did not follow your leadership on that, so.
I got a ways to go.
Brian's got that in his evaluation for
Yeah.
next year for Todd, so. Okay, anything else? Nothing else, we are adjourned.